Sheila here with Sirius Stylus Moon, and this is Venus hour, Soul Day, and the Sun is 8 degrees Sagittarius. Venus is opposing Uranus, and we're continuing on where we just left. And I was talking about the fact that when slavery looked like people working on the land, living in their own cabin, eventually inheriting the land, then supposedly that type of arrangement was allowed. And when not, then there was a big megalithic plague where the people that were enslaved working on the land survived the plague because their immune system was better than the elite. And I talked about in the previous video how this is also going to be a time of persecution of those that committed war crimes. What is the biggest war crime for Ares is anything to do with being rapey. Now, if we get that, then we're well planned for Uranus crossing Aldebaran, which is also the Uranus return for the United States. If we don't get that, then people are going to be duped by Uranus in the first term of Gemini, and then surprised when it reaches the second term. Now, Uranus is always surprising. Uranus is always surprising, and Venus here on the anaretic degree of Scorpio is now accentuating this 18-degree Mars. With the ascendant applying to Chiron and Aries, which we spent the previous hour talking about, definitely there are unexpected taking action on certain values. And with Venus in Scorpio, we want to eliminate something. Now, here is the thing. Mars has also to do with the end game, with the end goal, because it's about victory. Also Aldebaran. And this is where if eliminating something would bring about rape, it cannot be eliminated. Okay? And this is where it's kind of the purification point for Scorpio, because Scorpio likes to think about what can I detract, what can I take away, what can I it's kind of the minimalism sign. What can I take away to make things better? It's the less is more. And Venus here reminds us that we may have come to reach regarding Venus. If we take that particular thing, it's going to bring rape, which means that it's going to bring death to the rapist. So that which tries to take out something or someone, and that would bring about rape, or try to take something from someone, and that would bring about their rape, that person has now reached the threshold of that they cannot take anymore without the consequences of assassination and persecution, like the persecuted the people after Second World War, decades afterwards. You put that person into trafficking, you take that thing away and put that person into risk of trafficking, boom, there, you have whatever happens with that person, you have ended up being persecuted for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades upon decades. Now, those that set up the extortion cults, they know it. And they are going to be one of the hits that are going to leak. Their names are going to leak, probably around the Saturn Neptune. I don't remember, August 2025. Okay, there were a lot of attempts to manifest kind of like estates, kind of like the True estate or the Epstein estate. Okay, those people that try to manifest such things for other people, who try to intervene in people's magic to manifest such things for them, there is a point now with Venus at the end of Scorpio where they understand, or the eureka, the prediction is coming about. Is, by the way, Venus returned for Prime Minister of Singapore. Okay, think about the way that they want to transition the ICC from Hague to Singapore. Okay, they're gonna have to litigate someone for child structure, just structure. Okay, and think about what Singapore has to align before in order to have this structure of the ICC transition to Singapore. Venus 29. I said I'm going to have a prediction when Venus returns here. And here's the thing, it's not, how should I say that? The first decan of Gemini is going to be very disillusioning because it's like, oh, we can do that with that and that and that. That. Oh, that trick, look at that trick. We sue the ICC for child abuse. Okay, we're going to have to put the court elsewhere. We're going to put it in Singapore. Singapore, no problem. None of us is war criminal by Singapore, except that. They're gonna want to abolish the thing you abolished in The Hague. They want to do that in Singapore. How Singapore? All the billionaires that they escaped Epstein to, you know. Singapore take their money, but that money was made by taking the life energy of the raped children. Oops. Now here is how misleading the name of this episode is. I think it's with an E. Yeah. Like, who's gonna watch that? Where is that egg again? It's actually relevant. Okay, and that's now a lot of us. You think my own thing was like, hey, I really need to at least try to eliminate the dairy stuff because I talk a lot about sexual sovereignty and the breeding of the dairy products is in the commercial use with rape. So I'm like, okay, let's try again to let's replace it, I don't know, with coconut and all kind of healthy stuff and see how it goes. Then of course, I don't know how many people are raped in the coconut industry, how many people are raped in the turmeric industry, how many people were raped with producing rose essential oil. It's a lot of elimination. Venus also reminds us that eliminating that which would bring rape is impossible. Only to replace it with something that would not bring rape. Okay, so we have it from the elimination part, and we have it from the global total. So this Venus that's now crossing the threshold, okay, of the opposition with Uranus, with the retrograde Uranus, and the next time she will oppose it, I think, will already be in from Sagittarius. Now Uranus is also relation, and where we think what is what the values what are the last values that if we take that value away, it's no longer standing, or if we take that relation away, it's no longer standing. Okay, so there is an elimination process of Venus, of relations. And a lot of eurekas and surprises. And here is the thing, Pluto in Aquarius definitely is, and also Pluto being out of bounds definitely denote at certain people having aspiration to have absolute and total control. And those are going to be the most satirical cases. Now, with Saturn, again, there are going to be a lot of cases where something or someone is climbing up the ladder And because of an Aries-related issue, they're climbing up the ladder to fall. Now, here's the thing. Climbing up the ladder is originally a Capricorn thing. And then the natural thing of climbing up the mountain is looking at the vast world and going into the vast. So the decline from the top of the mountain is not even seen as either a loss or a victory. It's just the processing of the experience of seeing the world differently after we saw it from the top of the mountain. But when it comes to Saturn in Aries, it's not a natural transition from one Saturn, the within the structure, to another, to outside of the structure. Okay, if you think about being very strategic, climbing up the ladder and so on, and then coming to the top of the mountain, we have to listen to the people that did it first, because those people, there are many corpses along the way that show us how important it is to listen to guidance. But then when we reach the top of the mountain, we actually can refine, we can change, we can rebuild. Okay, of course, the descent from a mountain is the most cautionary thing, because, okay, the decline is always the most cautionary, because there are more deaths upon decline than upon climbing anything, because of the slopes and gravity and stuff. But definitely the next step is absolutely space, which is Aquarius. And in Aquarius, the rules are different. There's something revolutionary. And this is something in some place where the tried and true, okay, when Saturn was was ingress into my 12th house, all the things I learned, then I had to implement, but the tried and true was not necessarily working. Neither were the advices of those that tried to usher me through the underdog. Because if I listened to either or, I would have to sift and sort what's actually right for me. But now Saturn here is climbing up the ladder, and in Aries is for something to be dissolved. But Aries is a Mars ruled sign. So, okay, so something that is important to mention. Um, Saturn rules bones, Aries rules the face. And, okay, I'm going to say it and I'm going to say it once. Ares, the god of the sign, is about killing rapists. Okay? Mars is about something broken. Saturn is bones. Aries is the face. Okay? So, I don't know. Okay, Mars rules accidents, um, and Neptune unfortunately rules mixing the identities of people. So, yeah. Mars is exalted at Capricorn because if it attacks, it can break bones. Um, and Saturn is fallen in Aries because if it climbed out the ladder being rapey, it could lose the bones breakage in the skull, which can happen by a bullet. And that's not, I'm sorry. And they couldn't mix the identity of the person. Now there's something mythical, all the symbols, because Neptune is symbols, to do with skulls and bones. I don't know, Vulcan. I mean, Neptune also rules secret societies, hospitals, doctors, diviners, even, or mundane astrologers. And, um, so that is, yes, those are very interesting things. But here is also something funny. This can be a lot of cases where somebody is coming to take down someone and it backfires. Mars is going to be in Aquarius with the meeting of the two. This is Mars return for Elon Musk. Um, and also, there can be blending of identities. People that do the type of personality called where their consciousness travels across should be particularly cautious because they might take a bullet in another. Ooh. There's something quantum like in this entire arena. Aries is the sign of the self. I don't know. People that have Rahu around these degrees are going to have a Saturn and Neptune encounter around their Rahus. And I haven't had Saturn. I mean, when did Saturn go over my Rahu? When was Saturn in Gemini? So, gonna have to look for the Saturn Gemini. 222 as I speak. Mediumship, Saturn is death, Rahu. I'm not saying that these people are gonna die, but just okay. Just to just to make that clear. Um, oh, it takes time. Of course, it takes time. Um, there's the liminal space that can arrive upon this, but I'm trying to think when was Saturn in Gemini? Other than the 70s, more recently, the 2004, something like that. 2000, the early 2000s. Wait a second. First of all, I'm alive. I survived my Saturn Rahu. I became a filmmaker, became a screenwriter and a filmmaker. I got my first award for writing. It was monetary. I made my first money out of writing. That's what it was for me. And it's in my fourth house. Like I could have died. I think there was Intifada. I don't remember all the Intifada times. So definitely Saturn rules Rahu, so it's about to incarnate something of mythical importance. And it's going to materialize. It's a great time to write movies or to produce movies. Can be even AI movies or war movies. If somebody is saved from that, that can happen on a miraculous way. Okay, something like because one has to surrender something and they could be saved from death or um, with Saturn Neptune tending to the missing and so on and so forth. Discerning whether a rock is authentic or not can be, but with Saturn Neptune is a dissolution of structures. For example, one of the rocks that I saw was an emerald that had this star shape within it because there was a dissolution of the formation of the rock. And I think it was discovered in South America. So it was a unique crystal, a unique type of emerald that just because there was a liquidation that's happening in a different stage time of the formation of the rock, then basically it carried an unusual shape. And I think it's going to be a characteristic of the minerals that we're going to discover upon the Saturn Neptune conjunction. Um, be challenged to classify something, okay? Because Aries is also the I am, so it's the original. Neptune can be the mimicry of, and sometimes we know that when we try to come up with something, or think about the time we try to come up with a recipe or something like that, and we didn't get that one, or something ingredient was missing, and so on, but it came out better than the original, or it came out at least as good, but completely different. Something complete. There are going to be tremendous amount of innovations that happen by accident and by chance. Um, because we have to surrender with Saturn the process of incarnation of something. Now think about the fact Libra is where Saturn exalts, but we are 180 from Libra. So particularly things related to karma can be seem like something is broken. Okay, so like what happens to the karma? Why is it broken? Well, you couldn't have done the Me Too without breaking the wheel of due procedure, because the entire topic of sexual boundary violation harms the language acquisition, the consciousness, even the identity of a person, that cannot just arrive in court and what we would consider as evidence like coherent truth. Okay, Jupiter that rules truth also rules cohesion, but we're talking with Venus matters, and this is where we had to work with the Mars and Venus, and broken voice, broken testimony was actually proof. Okay, and then a cohesive testimony can only come about after healing. And then if people would expect a pattern, like, oh, they would expect why is that testimony so cohesive? They actually begin to heal enough so that they can testify. At that time where everything was broken and they were running for their lives, they developed a warrior quality and an innate inner power structure where they became cohesive in the fire. I think it's one of the challenges. Anneke Lucas talked about it a lot because she had her memory recovered from dissociation after the torture, and she saw cohesion as the both a testimony for healing and the fact that, well, there is a cohesion, so it probably rounded about the truth. So it's probably not, kind of misguided, whatnot. At the same time, when we talk about the violation of sexual boundaries, is basically a Mars Venus thing, and the Venus needs um, it takes recovery to be cohesive, but also it's the broken testimony and the broken voice that is the truth, that is the evidence. Um, and so there cannot be due procedure when we ask to eliminate rape, as painful as it is, because that necessitates a lot of cases paramounting to that. And this is where the identity of the person can be mistaken, and then There is a surrendering of whether something is successful, and this is also where, unfortunately, with Saturn Neptune, also surrendering the death procedure, um, and this is also where oh gosh, certain people having the Saturn on the moon. Saturn moon. Yes, the saddest satis of the end Pisces beginning Aries. Um, I don't know. It's it's and yet with Neptune the intention that the death would be without suffering, even if the person was a criminal, and I mean a rapist in that sense. Okay. Um, I remember I had a discussion where it talked about, it was on Instagram. There was a case of a lady that burned the rapist of her daughter, and I talked about the fact that the common people don't have access to have a quick death here, and she didn't do it as revenge. She was just continuing to harass her daughter even after prison, or like, or he wasn't sent to prison. Like, there was something where he's continuing to, the threat was still there, and to basically she had to kill the rapist to to end the risk of rape, and she had to burn him alive because she had no way to kill him that would be like a quick humane death, um, in that sense. So she just had to protect herself in some way, and that meant surrendering how the rapist will die, because she had to end, and a lot of people commit suicide, successful or not, or even apply, when people can apply to suicide, assisted suicide, then they, after such cases, usually it's the cases of applicants, and then it's very weird because they have to show that they are sane enough, okay, because it's a mental condition, and they have to show that they are sane enough to basically be eligible for assisted death, and they, and they have to have psychiatrists trying all kinds of medications which are the cause of, because they put people in risk of death. So this is why people would not go through that route, and that can create more violent assassination attempts. I'm sorry, suicide attempts, but also assassination attempts. Therefore, is what I'm getting, because people would need to kill the rapist. It's kind of like it's kind of like they have to surrender being able to die, so they have to kill the rapist. There's just something going on there, and Mars is action. So we're talking about, it's not a cold case deacon or something. We're talking about active, because they want to kill the person that still rapes, and that's where that death can happen. It's like somebody still rapes, then they can have an accident, or they can die by somebody have to surrender, um, that's, and with Saturn ruling over Pluto, there's definitely going to be an AI, or definitely going to be the robotification of people. So we're going to deal with the nervous system, and or a technology, okay, related stuff to do with that. Yep, enough internet for today.